Hello, my name is Kimberly Weitzman. I'm the QA and training team lead at ViaQuest Psychiatric and Behavioral Solutions. The purpose of this training is to review a handout titled Documentation Reminders for TBS and Therapists on the IDD team. This handout is several pages long. I'd recommend having a copy of it to take notes on, or at least having paper and pen to take notes with, as I will cover every item on this handout, as well as demonstrate some of the tasks and perhaps reference some things that are not on the handout that you may want to take note of. So please pause the video if you need to, go get what you need to be successful to complete this training. Otherwise, if you are ready, let's go ahead and get started. A first note here is for team leads that this handout and this training, documentation, and job-related reminders should be used for your direct reports as well as for yourself. But please be aware that there is another training specific to team leads for their own documentation reminders and job-related reminders that they also need to view in addition. Starting with paid time off, PTO, bereavement, attendance, and jury duty. Paid time off requests for 8 hours or less must be submitted to the employee's immediate supervisor at least 72 hours in advance. For salary or exempt employees, paid time off can only be taken in 4-hour increments. Paid time off requests of more than 8 hours or one shift should be made at least 2 weeks in advance. Paid time off needs to be the same in SmartCare as it is in paid for. If you need to take a sick day, notify your supervisor as soon as possible. Submit a PTO request as soon as possible, or within 24 hours of notifying your supervisor, and enter it into the electronic health record, your SmartCare calendar, and paid for. Make sure either you or your supervisor are informing the day program and or any community clients that you had appointments with of your absence. Notify your supervisor as soon as possible regarding the need to take bereavement time off. Your supervisor will work with HR to create a personnel action form for time off. Bereavement time must be approved by HR prior to taking the time off. You do not need to put bereavement time into the electronic health record or pay for. Notify your supervisor immediately if you are summoned to jury duty. Your supervisor will work with HR to create a personnel action form for your time off. Jury duty is also not entered into SmartCare or paid for. Mileage and supply requests. Mileage cannot be claimed for your commute to your first location of work or from your last location of work. Mileage can be claimed during the workday when traveling from one location to another throughout the day for work purposes. Mileage cannot be claimed for driving from home to your first site of services or for driving from the last site of services to your home. Mileage must be documented and certified and submitted to your supervisor by the 5th of the following month. Mileage submitted after the 5th of the month will not be approved. For example, January expenses must be submitted by the 5th of February. If the employee is on paid time off or is scheduled to be on paid time off on the 5th, mileage is required to be submitted by the employee prior to their scheduled time off, or it is not eligible for reimbursement. You must get approval from the clinical director prior to purchasing any supplies. An itemized receipt is required. Mileage over $300 a month needs to be reviewed with the next level supervisor. If you need more information or are not familiar with Certify or mileage, please be aware that there is another training and another handout, a cheat sheet about Certify, or you can also ask your supervisor for more information. Payroll, billing, and calendars. Payroll runs from Sunday through Saturday. Staff employees are responsible for inputting payroll time daily and running their payroll services summary with productivity report daily. And just so we all are on the same page, excuse me, as far as what that is, if you have logged into SmartCare, you'll come to your search function, your magnifying glass. If you just start typing in the words to payroll, the one we want is payroll services summary with productivity, my office. As I mentioned earlier, the weeks go Sunday through Saturday. You'll find yourself alphabetically by last name by scrolling, select it, and then click View Report. And then what the report looks like is it will be a list of all clients that you met with during that time frame that you searched, the date that you met with them, the program that you're assigned to, was that note signed according to policy, the service that was provided, or if it was a payroll entry, what type of payroll entry was it? In this case, this person had a non-billable non-work holiday, but if they were hourly, their payroll entry would be how long did they work, or anybody could enter PTO here. The status of that entry, is it complete? Is it still marked show? Is it marked error? Is there something that needs to be brought to your attention? How long did the service last, or how long was that payroll entry? How does that correspond to payroll hours, and how does that correspond to productivity in the last column here? So please be familiar with how to run your payroll services summary with productivity report and how to interpret this information. Okay. So like I said, you'll be responsible for running this report daily. TBS will check their payroll entries to ensure that all are correct and any approved paid time off is reflected correctly on their calendar in SmartCare. TBS will check to ensure all services rendered are captured correctly on the report and that no service times overlap. Calendars for the following week must be entered in SmartCare by 5 p.m. of the Friday preceding that week. This should contain calendar blocks of when you'll be in your assigned work locations. Employees who have community clients should have an appointment block in their calendars for the client's appointment and the location of the appointment. Ensure you have entered payroll blocks with exact work hours within 24 hours and no later than 48 hours to ensure accurate entry of your work time, ensure it matches your client services, and is reflective of your documentation time. All billable, non-billable, holiday, PTO, payroll entries must be correct and marked in the show status. By Mondays at 9 a.m., TBS will check to ensure that all services, including payroll time, are in the complete status. So that's what I just showed you. We're looking at this column here, status should be all complete by 9 a.m. on Monday. Okay, moving on to documentation compliance, specifically consents, releases of information, excuse me, and flags. Ensure that all clients always have an active consent. Ensure that those that have been verbally consented have a witness signature. And when we talk about an active consent, what we mean is this form titled Informed Consent for Services and Treatment. Not only that it is completed correctly, but also that it is filled out at the bottom with signatures correctly. We should have the printed name of the client signature. If they have a guardian or other legal representative, that person would need to sign. And if the client is giving verbal consent, we would need a witness signature and date down here at the bottom. So this is the current version of this document. Please also be sure to check Paycor for the most up-to-date version of such documents. Ensure that releases of information are complete with identified disclosure source and client guardian signature. So when we say release of information, let's all get on the same page as far as what that is. It may also be called a standard authorization form. This is just an example. So basic directions are that all fields marked with an asterisk are required to be filled out. What was referenced on the handout that I was just reading was specifically this section here indicating the disclosing entity, in this case, BioQuest Psychiatric and Behavioral Solutions, and then who is the recipient or who is the person that will be receiving this information. Who are we giving information to? Is it a doctor? Is it an agency? That should be filled out here. And then also important to have the signature of the individual. And again, if the person has a guardian or other personal representative, that person could sign and date here. And then indicate the type of relationship that that person has to the client. Is it their legal guardian, their parent, if they are a minor, so on and so forth. Please also get such documents from Paycor, so you're sure to have the most recent version of these documents as they are updated from time to time. If you find an issue with such documents, let your supervisor know. Follow the recommendations to remedy this immediately. Ensure that all clients have an accurate facility flag. Monitor all flags, especially those that are indicating no insurance coverage or an outdated treatment plan. There are several places that we can find flags, so let's just review them real quick so you know them all. When you first open a client chart, you may be presented with a flag alert box, which here are listed very common flags that this is a residential client, this is a day and employment services client, for example, or if this client was in a facility, that should be listed here in the flag alert box. Another place to check them is these icons at the top next to the client name and chart number. If the chart is open, you could hover over them and get that information as well. And then the last place that you could find them is by hovering over Timelines, Flags, and Events banner on the left. Click on Client Flags. If they have current flags, you'll see the list of active flags on the screen here. If you need to add a new one, as with anything in SmartCare, you click the New button, enter the required information, click Insert, and then always are going to want to save information. Diagnostic assessments, DAs, and psychiatric evaluations. If the client is receiving TBS services only, a diagnostic assessment, a DA, or a psychiatric evaluation needs to be completed prior to any billable services taking place. A DA needs to be updated annually, and a psychiatric evaluation needs to be completed at least every 2 years. A reevaluation should be completed when there is a major event influencing a new diagnosis or a change in treatment. For therapy services, all clients requesting services for therapy will receive a diagnostic assessment completed by a licensed counselor or social worker. A diagnostic assessment can be completed to initiate either therapy or TBS services. A DA should be completed within 30 days of receiving the referral. A DA will be initiated within the electronic health record by 11:59 p.m. Saturday of the initial encounter, billing for the assessment for services. A progress note must be completed within 48 hours to document the assessment using the procedure code Psychiatric Diagnostic Eval without medical 90791. So basically what that is saying is just doing the diagnostic assessment in SmartCare will not bill for that service being provided, so you need to do both. The diagnostic assessment document in the client's chart, as well as this progress note with the code listed there on the screen. The diagnostic assessment must then be finalized within 14 days of the initial encounter and signed by an independently licensed counselor or social worker within 30 days of the initial encounter. If corrections are requested by an independently licensed supervisor, they must be made within 5 business days of the request and resubmitted to the supervisor to ensure it is completed and signed off within 30 days of the initial encounter. Clients receiving therapy services will receive an annual diagnostic assessment. Therapists will note in the interpretive summary their update and continued justification for services and the client meeting diagnostic criteria. Moving on to the individualized treatment plan, or the ITP. ITPs need to be started at the first billable session after the initial diagnostic assessment or psychiatric evaluation. The treatment plan is to be initiated by whomever sees the client first after the DA or the psych eval. So it could be the TBS and also could be the therapist. The guardian should be involved in the development of the treatment plan and informed throughout treatment of any changes to the ITP and given the opportunity to give feedback for any reviews. All objectives need to be measurable, achievable, and time specific. I would refer you back to any handouts that you received during your initial SmartCare training that walk you through how to do that. Treatment plans must be completed and entered into SmartCare within the first 3 sessions or 15 days, whichever is sooner, and then routed to the independently licensed supervisor for approval. Treatment plans are to be reviewed, updated every 6 months. ITP reviews should be initiated in the 5th month and sent to the clinical supervisor to sign off by the 6th month to remain in compliance. Like I mentioned earlier, follow that ITP cheat sheet from new hire training for assistance. Treatment plans returned for corrections must be fixed and returned to the supervisor within 5 business days. When a service is added or removed, the treatment plan needs to be updated to ensure all interventions the client is receiving are accurate. No additional services can be provided after the initial DA or psych eval unless the ITP has been started. Staff will notate the development of the treatment plan in the progress note written for that session. So please notate things like the goal that was identified or goals that were brainstormed, as well as symptoms and diagnosis that are to be addressed. It's recommended to use the SNAP assessment handout to assist with completing the SNAP sections of the treatment plan, which also can fall under the heading of initiating the treatment plan. Moving on to outcome measures and other assessments like the PHQ-9, the GAT-7, the SNAP, and the BIMS. If there was a psychiatric evaluation done for that particular client, instead of a diagnostic assessment, the TBS will have to do the PHQ-9 and GAD-7 at the first billable session during the development of the treatment plan, as the initial PHQ-9 and GAD-7 is embedded in the assessment. The PHQ-9 and GAD-7 are to be completed in the electronic health record. You may use paper PHQ-9 and GAD-7s, but then that information does need to be entered then into SmartCare. So just to review, once you have logged into SmartCare, you've opened a client chart. To enter either the GAD-7 or PHQ-9, you would then hover over Assessment Tools, click on either the GAD-7 or PHQ-9. As with anything in SmartCare, if you click on the New button, looks like a little piece of paper, that will give you a fresh form to fill out. It will score it for you. Once you've completed all areas, you will click Sign. PHQ-9 and GAD-7 are to be updated at least every 6 months during the treatment plan update. You may do them sooner, but the minimum requirement is every 6 months to coincide with a treatment plan review. TBS will initiate a brief interview for mental status, or a BIMS, for clients who scored as a 99 on their psychiatric evaluation BIMS to determine eligibility for TBS services. So to do a BIMS, once you have logged in to SmartCare and you are into a client chart, the BIMS can be found by hovering over clinical documents, clicking on BIMS. If you need to do a new one, as you would with anything, you would click the New button. The BIMS does not score itself, but it does walk you through how to ask the questions as well as how to score it down at the bottom. Don't forget to sign the BIMS as well. So clients with a BIMS of 7 to 15 are eligible for TBS services. Those with a score lower than 7 may not meet medical necessity for treatment, and further discussion will be needed with the supervisor to determine if additional evaluation is necessary or if a discharge for services should be completed in the electronic health record. TBS can also facilitate at any point in treatment a BIMS to ensure that the client continues to meet eligibility for TBS. The BIMS is completed in SmartCare and functions as a part of their clinical record. Safety plans are required for all clients who have an intellectual or developmental disability diagnosis. Safety plans must be completed during the first session after the diagnostic assessment or the psychiatric evaluation. Safety plans must be created or updated and reviewed when a client has any suicidal or homicidal ideations throughout treatment. Safety plans are to be completed and signed in SmartCare, a paper copy given to the client. The progress note from that session where the safety plan was reviewed or completed should reflect what occurred, that the completion or the revision of the safety plan took place, and the client's approval of the plan. And again, just to review how you would do that, once you have logged into SmartCare and opened a client chart, you would hover over clinical documents, click on safety plan, As with anything, you would click the New button, allowing you to fill out a new safety plan. Don't forget to sign and give the client a copy. Okay, moving on to progress notes. All progress notes, both billable and non-billable, are to be completed in SmartCare within 48 hours of the service delivery and on the same day for services provided on Saturday. The service time on progress notes needs to be in the exact time with no rounding or estimating. All billable progress notes must be client-centered and contain a primary mental health diagnosis, a treatment goal, an objective, and best practice is to include quotes from the client. So notes are client-centered when we have used the client's name, so actually using their first name or what they prefer to be called, using quotations from the client or describing what the client stated are always to be client-centered. All sections on the progress note should be completed, including the mental status exam, indicate the interventions used, and describe the client's response to the interventions used, as well as indicate any homework that has been assigned. Ensure that all progress notes are complete and accurate. Capture the exact start and stop times of services delivered. Ensure that all progress notes have a goal and objective listed on the note, which will populate unless this is a new client within the first 3 sessions, and in which case what you're working on in those sessions is coming up with a treatment plan. All progress notes must be completed within 48 hours of the appointment and by the end of the week. Monitor your completion of progress note percentage and ensure that it is above 95%. So one more time, you can find this on your payroll services summary with productivity. Under sign per policy, it will indicate yes or no. Here's the percentage that you want to keep, above 95%. Ensure clients on your caseload not seen in the week have a non-billable note documenting the cancellation, no-show, or reminders for TBS and therapists, the IDD team, to follow up on that client. The treatment goal from the ITP and the diagnosis should be referenced in the narrative on the progress note. So in the client response section, reference symptoms that are being worked on. The diagnosis should match what is indicated on the treatment plan and clearly describe what the client stated, what the client responded to the interventions provided during that section. Discharges. All progress notes and documentation, including a current signed treatment plan, must be completed prior to completing and signing a discharge, because effectively once that discharge summary is signed, no other documentation can be entered or completed in that chart. All sections of the discharge summary need to be updated or completed. Administrative discharge should not be used as a reason for the discharge unless approved by a supervisor. Discharges should be completed as soon as possible or within 30 days of the last contact with the client. A program discharge is completed when the client meets his or her treatment goals or disengages from the service but remains open to other services. An agency discharge is completed when the client moves out of the area of coverage, achieves goals or objectives, is no longer interested or engaging in services, or has passed away. A hard-to-reach letter should be sent to clients and uploaded into their chart in SmartCare. Caseload compliance. Staff are responsible for maintaining their caseload in SmartCare and ensuring all clients are seen at least once every 30 days. So if you look at your caseload report, you'll see that information here. When was the last date they were seen by you? And then it will calculate the number of days that it's been since you have seen them. Staff are responsible for reviewing their clinical audit caseload report at least once per month in SmartCare and updating all consents, assessments, and ITPs that might be out of compliance. So you would want to log into SmartCare, use your magnifying glass search function, type in the word clinical. The one we want is the clinical audit report by staff. Find yourself alphabetically by last name and select it. Click view report. And then what this will indicate is an overall percentage score that each client received on this audit. And then all of these columns are broad topics. And if you click the plus button, it will expand to give you more details about that particular heading. So here's intake. If I click the plus button, it will tell me what's looked at specifically at intake. Did they obtain the phone number, the address, the emergency contact information? Did they record the ethnicity and race of that client, either yes or no? And you can see those scores there. Other items may not apply to a client, and so you will see those listed as NA. But please get familiar with what the questions are asking, and please expand all of these topics to see what is being looked for in each of these categories, so that you can be sure to score well on your audits, as well as provide good quality care and documentation for your client. Run your caseload report. It's called caseload report my office, like I just showed you, in SmartCare Weekly for all programs that you're assigned to. This will provide you with a list of clients that have been assigned to you. Check that all clients have had a billable service within 14 days, or that you have entered a non-billable note in the record that documents an attempt to provide services to the client or any barriers to them receiving services. All active and assigned clients must have a billable service in the last 30 days. If you're not reaching this minimum standard, please bring these cases to supervision for discussion and supervisory directions. Ensure all treatment plans are active within the last 5 months. If one is at the 5th month, please work on reviewing and completing your treatment plan and submitting it for clinical review within the week. Check to see if clients have the appropriate facility or location flags. Ensure they have no flags that prevent the services being provided, things such as loss of Medicaid, loss of insurance, no treatment plan, or other warnings. So there are several places to see client flags. Let's just review those. When you first open a client chart, you should be presented with a flag alert box that gives you the information about the flags. So here we see that it's a residential client, it's a day in employment services client, it's a deaf services client, so on and so forth. You can find them there. You may also find these icons up at the top next to the client name and client number. When you hover over them, more information is provided. The other place that you can see them is by hovering over the banner, timeline, flags, and events in the client chart, clicking on client flags. And here you see a list of current active flags. As with anything in SmartCare, if you click the new button, looks like a little piece of paper, you could enter a new flag if need be, all the relevant information, click insert, and then don't forget to save. Okay, incident reporting. All VPBS employees are considered to be mandated reporters. I would stop right here and say, if you need a refresher on reporting guidelines, please go back and rewatch that training or read those policies or ask any questions that you may have to your supervisor. VPBS employees will verify the client is safe from potential future harm at the time of discovery and then contact the incident hotline. That phone number is 844-487-1265 immediately or within 1 hour of discovery of the incident. Please pause this video now and put that phone number into your cell phone if you don't already have it, or write it down somewhere. We'll have it handy. VPBS employees will discuss the incident with the incident hotline supervisor or regional director prior to moving forward with the reporting process. VPBS employees will complete Form VPBS 12.23AC, Incident Notification Form, for all department notifications, and witness statements will be completed by the end of that business day of discovery of a reportable event. All incident reports must be submitted to the on-call supervisor with a copy to your supervisor, clinical director, and the QA director. When another ViaQuest business line is involved, remind staff to first contact the VDES or VRS leadership team in regard to the incident to determine responsibility of reporting the incident if it is a major unusual incident. If VDES or VRS are not in agreement with reporting, Contact the executive director of VPBS IDD so that communication with the VP of that business line can occur. Creating or reviewing safety plans for client upon the incident should be notated in the progress note. Report all injury and accidents to your supervisor and HR per the timeframes listed in the policy COR 3.43, General Safety Practices, which you can find in PAYCOR. If required to complete an accident report, this should be completed by the end of the business day or within 24 hours of the incident. And here I am going to show you where to find these policies, procedures, and forms in PAYCOR. So once you have logged into PAYCOR, you will come to your profile menu. You will click on Summary. It will take you over here to the left. Under Summary, you will click on Assignment. From there, you will click on Documents. It will bring you to Employee Documents, and all of the policies, procedures, and forms will be listed under Resources. You can either search by number, or if you know what the title of that particular item is, you may search there, or you can consult the index if you're maybe unsure what a particular item is called. So that's how you would access from PAYCOR all of the most recent policies, procedures, and forms. Always get from PAYCOR. We would advise against downloading a form to your computer, for example, and using it from there, as these do change and are updated quite frequently. The other thing I want to talk about very quickly before we get off of incident reporting is to recommend that you keep and hang on to this What Do I Report card that you received at new hire training, or you can request another one from your supervisor, or you can request one from the trainer in your region. It outlines just very quickly some things that are reportable and in the time frame and information about how to go about doing that. The phone number, as well as the time frames that you need to respect when it comes to reporting. Okay, so communication, supervision, team meetings, and training is the next topic. Complete all new hire trainings, videos, shadowing, and complete each quiz and verification. Submit those to your training manager and supervisor. Check your ViaQuest email at least twice a day. Respond to emails within 24 hours. Use PAYCOR to locate and find all ViaQuest policies and procedures, like I just showed you. After logging in, you will go to your profile, choose position, go to assignments and documents, and then you'll find everything under the Resources tab. Track your required mandatory training, such as CPR, first aid, Aegis, annual HR policy reviews, and so forth. Notify your supervisor in advance so you can get scheduled for the in-class portions and attend all of those in-person trainings. Complete other trainings within the timeframes when you are sent the email. Communications through PAYCOR about your online video coursework. Submit a copy of your attendance, your certificate, to your supervisor. Ensure that you are always using HIPAA protections and security in your job duties and communications with others, being mindful of phone calls, texts, emails, and having professional conversations in all locations. I also would recommend that you review the compliance and HIPAA training if you feel as though you need a refresher on this topic. On occasion, you may need to send a secure encrypted email that includes sensitive data, such as client information, to a non-ViaQuest email address. Doing so will require the recipient to access a website to sign in, which is more secure. To do this, to send an encrypted email, you will type secure in all caps in the subject line of the email. It is required to be in all caps, just like you see here, followed by a colon without any spaces. Attend supervision as it's required, clinical and team meetings as scheduled. Communicate any barriers to these expectations to your supervisor and your plan to reschedule trainings or review information, perhaps meeting virtually or reviewing meeting minutes. You also want to be sure to know the ViaQuest Culture Playbook as well as our choice values and use them in all aspects of your position. I'll show you real quick where to get the ViaQuest Playbook. Once you have logged into Paycor, from the home screen, there'll be a link to the ViaQuest Culture Playbook. If you click on that, we'll bring it up for your review. Enroll in and use the ViaQuest voice for updates on information and connections to HR resources. That information comes through text. So you will have to have your phone number, your cell phone number up to date with HR to receive that information. And then lastly, we want you to use CA Short. The website for that is actually peopleareeverything.com to celebrate your coworkers' success, anniversaries, and birthdays. We want you to use e-cards regularly and often to recognize your coworkers. So I'll show you real quick what that website looks like. So this is peopleareeverything.com. You'll see here you can send different types of e-cards to people to recognize anniversaries, birth dates, so on and so forth. You may also receive choice cards that have points attached to them. You can then use the points to purchase prizes from the catalog on the website. So it's a great way to be rewarded for your hard work here at ViaQuest. So that actually concludes this handout over documentation reminders for TBS as a therapist, specifically for the IDD team. If you have any questions over anything that you saw in this handout or anything that I demonstrated, please do not hesitate to reach out to your supervisor for more direction. And I hope this was helpful to you, and have a great day.